European Union defense industry and PESCO project in the crisis period. Opportunities for Eastern European Union. I will try to start with some words provided by the former President Juncker, a European Union that protect and defend. Maybe was the start and a new way for the future very important problem, defense, one integrated defense. The beginner was the start in the early 2000s with a lot of problems detected by the fragmentation, duplication, and protectionism at the level of country or, of course, at the group of countries. In 2080, the Commission, for the first time, opened one infringement procedure against 5 member states. Maybe it was a shock for the first time. After that, it was possible to correct the way to build a new strategy for European defense. In 2060, European Union defense was adopted, European Defense Action Plan, a very important document. With new member states, new opportunity for the market, and of course, new goals for European defense. Now we have a lot of regulation, and in the legal framework, the market is on the first plan, adopted the Directive 81 in 2009 and 43 again in 2009. In light of changing security environment, the European Union Global Strategy for Foreign and Security Policy started the process of closer cooperation in the security defense with new rules. European Union member states agreed to step on European Union work in this area, and all the countries detect the necessity to increase investment, to have more cooperation in developing defense capabilities. Initially, it was a list with 17 projects developed under PESCO. In 2080 was adopted the list, but after that, after a very strong discussion, the list was supplemented with another 17 additional projects. And next year, in 2019, in November, we have a new 13 new projects approved by the Council. The projects are grouped in 7 important areas. It's not necessary to talk about these groups, but I want to pass the next step in the pandemic situation, which generate a wide range of problems, including defense in the field of defense industry and PESCO project. It's a huge challenge. The question is, how can we turn the crisis into one opportunity? It is possible, which is the way for European Union or for each country separately. It's a fight, continuous fight, because we have one economical field and one defense field. Very important both. It's one symbiosis between two strategic elements of the European Union. The first speaker, it's Mr. Cristian Bușoi, which is a member of the European Union Parliament and chairman of the Committee on Industry, Research and Industry. He's a graduated the Faculty of Medicine of the Carol Davila University of Medicine and Pharmacy from Bucharest, as well as a graduated from a National Defense College from Bucharest, PhD program in Public Health and Health Management in Timișoara University. Apart from his political career as a member of Romanian National Liberal Party, he has held office in both Romanian and European Union institution. Between 2004 and 2007, he was a member of the Romanian Parliament, and after that, between 2007 and 2030, he has member of European Union Parliament, part of the Committee of the Internal Market and Consumer Protection. Mr. Bușoi also held the position of the President of the Romanian National Health Insurance Agency. For 10 to 12 minutes, I invite Mr. Bușoi to present us the most important ideas about the subject of the panel. Please, Mr. Bușoi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Learschi. I'm very honored to be here, and congratulations to the organizers, to New Strategy Center for holding this impressive event in such difficult conditions. I am, since December, the chairman of Industry, Research and Energy Committee in the European Parliament, and beside the energy issues, which are extremely important and present due to Green Deal, and beside other important issues like research, Horizon Europe, and the digital strategies of European Union, European Defence Fund and European Defence Industry is part of the activities and political initiatives which are under the remit of ITRE committee, the committee where I am the chairman. Defense and security became in the last years one of the priorities of the Union after many years of systematically decline. The spending on defense was left alone on member states' responsibility, and it suffered major cuts. You know well all the comparison, and it is very clear that comparing with other global actors, we still have to do some efforts and increase our spending and our cooperation. Because over the same period, the defense spending of the US market significant increase, while many other global competitors, notably Russia and China, upgraded their defense sectors on unprecedented scale. In 2007, European Union proposed the defense package. And some years after, two precursor funding programs of the EDF, which is Preparatory Action on Defense Research, designed to support collaborative R&D projects with a budget of only 90 million euros, but it was important. And it was between 2007 and 2019. And then European Defense Industry Development Program, conceived to support collaborative capability development projects with a budget of 500 million for 2019-2020, currently ongoing, are the first steps towards enhanced cross-border collaboration in the defense sector and towards increased spending in this sector. Moreover, the regulatory frameworks and spending were supported by important policy and political initiatives like the establishment of Permanent Structured Cooperation, PESCO, in the area of security and defense policy in 2017, with 25 out of 27 member states participating and supporting at the moment 47 PESCO projects ongoing and covering areas such as training, capability development, and operational readiness, but also by other financial instruments of the Union level, CEF for military mobility, and InvestEU for further developing the defense industry. Despite the recent efforts and these initiatives and collaboration, despite the recent increase in the overall defense spending, for instance, on defense R&T, research and technology, is falling in both absolute value and as a percentage of total defense spending. European defense industrial collaboration remains extremely limited, and it was also mentioned by our moderator, what it is observed and seen by many experts at the EU level and by my colleagues which are working for many years in this area, is that we still see a fragmentation, strong fragmentation along national borders, and in many cases, duplication. The title and the debate that we have in these days are very much linked with the current situation, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the effects not only in the medical field, but also in the industrial field. And what it is now clear for many of us is that the current pandemic will have strong effects also on the defense industry, because it will impact heavily member states' budgets, undermining their ability to sustain existing national defense. This, in turn, threatens to further limit Europe's influence in security and defense globally. Moreover, the current pandemic has highlighted Europe's over-dependency on international supply chains, which have been largely disrupted, and consequently, the need for European strategic autonomy in this sector. I can share with you the strong political decision that many of our production sites which are currently deployed outside European Union, and not only in the defense area, in many other areas, for instance in the pharmaceutical area, a subject that I'm very much working on. So there is a strong will, political will, to try to relocate to European Union and to try to increase the capability productions in the territory of our member states. The COVID pandemic has also complicated the delivery of finalized goods, which often require on-site visits and approvals. At the moment, this has been disrupted, especially with international contractors. European defense industry is amongst the most technologically advanced in the world. That accounts for approximately 20% of the global defense turnover, behind US and other global competitors, as I also mentioned at the beginning. We are still behind on the global share of arms exports, and our defense industry is largely represented by SMEs. The defense sector should not only maintain high-tech and high-end capabilities in Europe, but, as I said, should re-establish or relocate basic but indispensable industrial expertise, production capacities, and maintenance capabilities bases inside the Union. This is a crucial prerequisite for building a Europe of defense and moving towards strategic autonomy. In today's challenging geopolitical context, the current context is no longer sustainable. European defense industry can no longer afford fragmentation, and the scale of efficiency gains foregone through duplications, incapacity to tap on scale and learning economies, or being dependent, so much dependent, on external supply chains. A recovery post-COVID-19 in the field of defense and security is expected to invest and spend the expected defense budgets smartly, coordinated, and jointly, boosting the collaboration between member states and deepen the cooperation and interoperability in the field of defense. With defense budgets under pressure and the call to increase their military resilience, I believe that member states should put their effort towards genuine EU defense cooperation and towards a genuine collaboration with our international allies, and of course, first of all, with the United States. Nevertheless, given the current crisis, member states need to be supported by the Union with a robust framework and financial instrument. You know that one of the spending programs in the next multi-annual financial framework will be the European Defence Fund. Initially, 13 billion euros were proposed for the next 7 years. Then, because of the crisis, because of the cuts, because of the negotiations between member states, now the amount decreased a lot to 7.14 billion. European Parliament and my colleagues which are responsible for European Defence Fund, and I also participate to the negotiations as president of the committee, will try to negotiate with the German presidency and with the member states to increase a little bit this amount of money. But of course, we are very much reserved that we could do a large increase, because you know how difficult it was to find a compromise in the so much well-known to the European public nights and days of negotiation between heads of member states and governments when a final compromise was reached. But with this amount of money, I think many opportunities will appear for European defense industry. And of course, what I will very much like to learn today and to get a message from you and see what we could do in the European Parliament to support Romanian and also Central East European defense industry is to see how we can benefit in the best way possible of this opportunity, and not only of this. CEF will be another opportunity, InvestEU, of course, not only for military projects, but of hybrid projects, projects we could be also be for civil, but also military purposes. This is something that you, the best experts in Romania and Central East Europe, and also the distinguished guest coming from other member states, from our allies inside European Union and also from United States, could deliver the message and also could make together with us a good strategy in order to strengthen the Romanian industry, defense industry. Thank you so much, and of course, I'm once again very honored to be here today with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bușoi, for your excellent presentation. It's one official point of view of the European Union, and is very important on the start of the discussion. The next speaker is the Director of Defense Policy Directorate in Romanian Minister of Defense, Lady Simona Cojocaru. Now she is in the position like a State Secretary of Minister of Defense, Head of Department for Defense Policy Planning and International Relations of the Ministry of National Defense since November 2019. Lady Cojocaru holds a bachelor in global economy. This is one link between defense and economy. One master in international relations and European Union integration from the National School of Political and Administrative Studies. In addition, she has graduated other forms of education such as Howard University, GFK Government School, Senior Executive in International Security Program. She has worked since 1997 in the Department of Defense Policy, Planning and International Relations, and for 4 years she involves like a director of the Directorate for Defense Policy. For another 10 to 12 minutes, I invite Lady Simona Cojocaru to present us the most important element of the subject.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Many thanks for having me here. Many thanks to organizers. Indeed, it was very, very challenging to see so many friends in person after so many months. By the way, EU defense ministers gathered for the first time in person in Berlin last week. So there are signs, positive signs, that life is going back to normal. Let's hope for good. It's a sunny day, so comparing with yesterday, so I'm very, very happy to be here this morning. I'd like to thank all the panelists here, and I'm honored to be alongside them in this morning panel of the forum. So, 4 years after the publication of the global strategy of the European Union, it is evident that EU architecture for defense has improved and has been enhanced. It is not hard to see why, because the international environment, international security environment, is complicated, diffuse, complex, just say it, and other, adjectives. So it was high time to do more on defense at the level of the European Union. When taking over the office last year, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stated the vision of the Geopolitical Commission that would take bold steps towards the European Defense Union. Efforts were dedicated so to turn EU into a more capable defense sector, prepared for threats and challenges wherever they arise, including in its eastern and southern neighborhoods. Moreover, the stability of Europe and the wider international community cannot be addressed separately, in our view, from that of the Black Sea. So maybe some of you took part also in the panels yesterday in the forum when the Black Sea was, very high on the agenda. It was a lot of talk around the Black Sea threats and the risks. So we think there is no doubt that the Black Sea region is also of strategic importance for the Union. Therefore, we are talking today about an irreversible process at the level of defense. In order to develop EU defense capabilities and strengthen the common security and defense policy, CSDP. Europe should not lose competencies, skills, assets. This would undermine EU defense capacity and its capacity to protect values, interests, and security of the citizens. Commission 2019 proposal for the EU's next multi-annual financial framework reflected this ambition to spend more money on defense for the first time. This is a very important issue, for the first time. But what it was originally planned through the European Defense Fund will not happen, and we know all. In the negotiations so far, the funds decreased to 7 billion over the next 7 years. We are also talking about the loss of funding for the military mobility, a flagship initiative for EU-NATO cooperation, also a very important initiative also for the countries in the eastern part of the Europe. But on the positive side, I will say that many initiatives have been set into motion. They were in a kind, somebody called them, sleeping beauties, and suddenly they were revived. And we registered a lot of progress. Within the permanent structured cooperation framework, member states have made commitments to invest in the readiness of their national armed forces. The new coordinated annual review, CARD, is designed to coordinate the defense planning of the member states. The first ever Commission Directorate General for Defense Industry and Space broke a taboo. So very, very important developments in relation to these initiatives. We do think that continuous investments in research and development will be crucial for the future viability of the European defense industrial base in the post-COVID-19 timeframe. PESCO. PESCO is, in our view, a political and integrationist success and a strong symbol of willingness of the member states to invest in European defense. Romania remains attached to these commitments assumed when joining PESCO, and we are keen on making progress on better integrating EU initiatives and instruments in our national defense planning process. We are currently involved in 12 ongoing projects within PESCO, and as a concrete national contribution to PESCO, Romania launched last year in November, so quite recently, a number of 2 projects. One is related to European Network of Diving Center, and the other one is related to CBRN defense training ranges. So we are really confident that these 2 projects would bring added value to the European landscape in the fields of diving and armed forces training facilities, both with direct implications on Black Sea security. Moreover, these projects actively contribute to the implementation of the EU strategic priorities in the maritime domain, as I said, including Black Sea region. So, PESCO projects contribute to the achievement of the EU level of ambition with regard to capabilities development, increase of strategic cohesion in the military domain, and at the end of the day, enhancing operational cooperation at the EU level. As you may know, and I'm sure that you know very well, a strategic review of PESCO is currently underway. While we swiftly advance with the calendar of PESCO implementation, we should also make sure that this process will preserve the substance of the initiative, as well as the active and full involvement of the member states. Romania thinks that PESCO should remain inclusive, flexible, and will keep the potential to bring together and encourages member states to fully engage in working together. This is very important. So working together in PESCO, it's tremendously important at this stage. Moreover, I would say that ensuring interoperability with our closest allies is also essential. This is about first states' participation in PESCO. And we think this could bring added value, and this could strengthen the European defense. By the way, for us, strategic autonomy does not equal strategic isolation. So that's why, for a country like Romania, keeping our closest allies on board, it's a very important aim. We strongly support also PESCO projects, which have the potential to benefit from the EU funding through EDF, European Defence Fund. And as you may know, also 79% of total ADIDP 2019 grants were awarded to consortia linked to PESCO projects. I think it's extraordinary. And we have stayed the course, and we expect, why not, a higher percentage to be reached during the forthcoming EDF calls. EDF, couple of words from my side on EDF, and here and in the Ministry of Defense, on the defense policy side of the House, we think that EDF will contribute to enhancing Europe's resilience. Another key word, and I think everybody is familiar with resilience, by reducing dependencies on non-EU sources, as you already mentioned, and strengthening industrial EU supply chains. COVID-19 crisis highlighted, and this is not new what I'm going to say, the importance to ensure non-dependence for critical technologies in the defense sector. Therefore, the development of critical and emerging technologies for defense should be addressed through the entire duration of the EDF. Entities of all sizes and from all member states should have the opportunity to benefit from the fund. Particular attention should be paid to small and medium enterprises' participation in actions funded by the EDF, considering that these enterprises can play an important role in the development of technologies. As for Romania, you know, we have a new national defense strategy that reconfirms the political will to maintain an adequate level for funding defense at the level of minimum 2% of GDP. And moreover, the new strategy emphasizes very clearly guidelines on defense industry inter alia. I will just read a couple. So, provide a minimum of 20% of defense budget for procurement of military equipment, and as I have already said, minimum 2% for defense, and 2% of defense budget for research, development, and innovation. This is another important issue or topic. Support research development in defense industrial cooperation at European level, ensure state investments in military or dual-use production capacities to strengthen Romania's resilience to crisis situations and to reduce dependency on other non-EU and NATO suppliers. And of course, adapt security industry to armed forces endowment requirements and to the competitive environment, including by applying for European financing opportunities for research and development. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will sum up saying that we consider the EU initiatives, which are part of the wider implementation of the EU global strategy, that are contributing to the same goals, making EU a more capable defense sector and delivering more capabilities and deepening industrial European cooperation. Thank you. I will be very, very eager to, at the end of the panel, to have a conversation with you, because I'm really very interested to find out from you which are, you know, concerns, suggestions, observations to our vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lady. It was a very interesting point of view from Romanian side, but in accord with European policy, and you demonstrate our determination to involve like a real actor in this process. For a new step, I will invite Mr. Cyrille Bret to discuss about the subject. Our speaker, Mr. Cyrille Bret, is a senior auditor of the French General Inspection for Administration. laureate of National School for Social Sciences, with a master in economics, and he graduated from a National School of Government and the National Institute for Strategic Studies. He was Chief of Staff of the French Ambassador of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in European Union, in charge of Central Asia. In 2009, he is currently Coordination Development Director at Naval Group. Mr. Cyrille Bret is also advisor of the Chief of Staff of the French Armed Forces concerning in defense industry, geopolitical and defense sector for a post-Soviet area, Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and others, and the Middle East, Iran, Syria, Turkey. He is also professor in philosophy at Science, a political university in Paris, and director of the think tank Euro-Asia Perspective. Please, Mr. Bret, to present us your point of view.
Thank you, Admiral. Thank you, Sorin. Generals, my dear friends, I would like to say from the heart that I'm really happy and honored to be here for the second time. I think that the Black Sea and Balkan Security Forum is a key platform for the European to grasp all the challenges, all the issues, and all the possible means in order to meet the challenges of the region. I must say that when I met George Cojocaru several years ago in Poland, I was absolutely not aware of the strategic importance of the Black Sea region for all the European member states. And I'm happy to say that my company, Naval Group, is proud to be a long-time partner of the forum in order to raise in France and in all the countries in which my company operates the level of strategic awareness on the region. Going back to the topic of our panel, and I must say that I was already impressed by the comprehensive view on the PESCO projects that are at stake. I will go back to the grassroots level of the defense industry. From the point of view of the defense industry, the first decade of the PESCO project was a lost decade. It was a series of missed opportunities, probably because the period was not up to the challenges that were in preparation at that time. The toolbox was there. It's been said already. The Lisbon Treaty 2007 prepared the toolbox of the PESCO project, prepared the criteria, prepared the cooperation method, but nothing happened, nothing materialized. I mean, of course, it's too drastic, but it was a decade of lost opportunities for all the EU member states, not only for the Western or the Northern or the Eastern EU member states. The toolbox remained closed, and that was it. The political authorities were not convinced by the necessity of PESCO. The military authorities were not aware of what was at stake, and I must say that the industry sector didn't believe at all in PESCO. I had several proofs of that, several signs of that. 2015, the illegal annexation of Crimea and many other concerning events for the security, the autonomy of Europe, and it was a wake-up call. 2015 was a wake-up call, but it took time for the European Union, it took time for the EU member states, it took time for the national authorities, it took time for the national industries to react. 2 years before the first batch, the first wave of PESCO project, but now it's gaining momentum. You just said it. It's gaining momentum, but are we now sure that the opportunities opened by the PESCO project, by the European Defence Fund, by the new strategy prepared in the framework of the Global Compass, will be an opportunity that is really seized, that is really grasped by the forelock, by the EU member state in general, and by the EU member state of the eastern, northern, and southern eastern part of the European Union. And I must say, it's still a question mark. I mean, of course, the toolbox of the PESCO project, of the PESCO method, of the PESCO tools is open now. It's used. We are building, we together, meaning the 25 member states, the public sector, the private sector, we are building workshops, meaning the 47 projects of PESCO. We are funding. We have a bank now. It's the fund. But it's still not a factory. It's not working as if it can deliver real, comprehensive, and I should say strategic security for the European Union. So now the decade that has started with the first batch of PESCO project is still to be assessed, is still to be confirmed, is still to be worked. And I must say that Naval Group and the French defense sector are not fully prepared for that. We are enhancing our level of strategic awareness. We are raising our expectations, our actions in the realm of PESCO, but we still have to confirm our commitment to that. Naval Group is committed to the strengthening of the security of the eastern flank of Europe. In the northern region as well, we are present and active in Norway, in Finland, in the Baltic states, and it's not really easy to materialize in the French context. We are, of course, present, we have been very active for a long time in Poland, the key player of the Baltic region, and we are, of course, active in Romania, and I must say that I am proud to have displayed the key role of Romania in the decades to come for the security, the stability of the region and of the entire European Union. But what remains to be done for us, the private sector, in order to make sure that the opportunities of the PESCO project, and more globally speaking, the opportunities of the European defense tools are seized. I see three directions. And first, I will try to kill with a silver bullet the elephant in the room. The question of complementarity, of compatibility, of cooperation between NATO and PESCO, and more generally speaking, between NATO and the European defense initiatives. We have political authorities that are very keen on insisting on the European defense and the European strategic autonomy, but it's a key point. I must say that it's impossible to compare the toolbox and the workshops opened by the PESCO, the 47 project, grassroots project, with the 70-year-old integrated military, political, and diplomatic alliance of NATO. It cannot be placed on the same level. It's by definition, by construction, complementary. We bolster our initiatives in the strictly speaking European framework, but NATO is of course, and remain the framework of the collective European defense. And it's been clearly stated in the new white paper or national strategy of Romania. And I'm happy to say that it's almost a preposterous discussion, the question of the compatibility of the two framework. It has to be complementary. It's meant to be complementary. Second direction, to seize the opportunity. I think that it's high time now to say that not only the PESCO is an opportunity for the EU member state of the eastern region of Europe, but quite the reverse as well. I think that the strategic awareness, the industrial know-how, the technological excellence advantages of Romania, of Poland, of the Baltic states, of Slovakia as well, of Hungary as well, are opportunities for the PESCO project. I mean, what, concretely speaking, and less generally speaking, what can be and what is already the contribution of those countries, those member states to the European defense and to the PESCO? The question of resilience, you highlighted it. The question of the cyberspace, the question of the hybrid threats, info war, all those topics were raised, were developed, were highlighted, and are tackled by the eastern flank EU member states. When you operate in the French, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian framework, we were lagging behind on all those topics. And the reflection on the strategic level, on the global compass, and the reflection on the industrial level concerning the building up of mutual and transnational capabilities is, of course, is to be influenced, is to be shaped by the worries, by the threats that are met by Romania, Poland, and once again, the Baltic states. So, as of today, I should say, to answer the question raised by Sorin, I should say that, of course, the PESCO project are opportunities. We, Europe and the world, is living a tough crisis where all the resources, human, financial, technological, are scarce. And the less you have money, the most you have to make the most of it. It is an opportunity. We have to make the defense budget more efficient, and to make them more efficient, to suppress the redundancies, the duplication you mentioned, we have to involve, we all collectively Europeans, have to make the most of it in the framework of the 47 PESCO project, in the framework of the European Defence Fund. Of course, I regret the outcome of the negotiation, of course, but it's already there, and it's already a huge step for the funds that are to be invested in the defense project. So, in closing, and I would be really happy to hear what my friends in the room have to say on that, but I should say that when we tackle the PESCO project, when we tackle the global compass, the European defense, we have to bear in mind that strategic resilience is built upon strategic sensitivity, strategic consciousness, and the contribution, the major contribution of all the countries, including Greece on the southern flank of Europe, the contribution is to raise the level of strategic awareness and to raise the level of excellence of Europe in that realm. So many opportunities are still to be seized, but I think that the time of missed opportunities for the Eastern EU member states is over now. They are key players. They have shown and they have displayed their willingness, their capabilities, and their irreplaceable contribution to that debate and to the building of a stronger and more unified Europe. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Cyrille. Was one very very interesting point of view. It's clear for all, maybe. PESCO is one opportunity in necessity. It's very important to understand this philosophy, because we don't have two different ways. We have one way, one necessity, and our job is to detect the opportunities. The next speaker, not the last, in the order, of course, is Mr. Cătălin, the president of National Institute of Aerospace Research, and in the same time is general director. He was also president of European Union Research Establishment in Aeronautics Association between 2018-2019, president of International Supersonic Tunnel Association between 2017-2019, and former vice president of Government Board of European Union Joint Technology Initiative, Clean Sky. He has also acted as project manager for many strategic projects, such as wind tunnel programs for Romanian jets, Aero Taxi program, Clean Sky Blade, and Clean Sky 2 Racer. Mr. Nae holds a master in aeronautic engineering and, of course, in mathematics. Additionally, he is also PhD graduated in aeronautics from Polytechnic University of Bucharest and a postdoctorate program in aerospace engineering from Glasgow University in UK. I have a request for Mr. President to have a very short presentation in order to start the next step, questions, very important.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have to admit that I'm a little bit surprised on the way you organized this panel today, because it's kind of a flow passing from my left-hand side to my right-hand side, and I would like to continue things that have been already presented in a little bit more pessimistic way by our co-panelists around here. But again, it was not something that I knew beforehand, but looks like we are more or less trying to deliver more or less the same message. So just for your short information, it's not commercial advertising what we do and who we are, but just to introduce a little bit the legitimacy of a particular pessimistic approach that I'm about to present in what follows. So INCAS as a research establishment, obviously linked to the industrial development in the aeronautical sector, has a particular tradition of something more than 70 years, maybe a little bit longer, and somehow been recognized as being the main research establishment in aeronautical sciences, and not only in Romania. We are the continuator of INCAS for those of you who are familiar with what was happening around here before 1990. On the other hand, of course, we preserve some key capabilities that we promote at international level. We have our strategic partnerships, we have our way of doing work, more or less. We have our own strategic documents, and we are one of the stakeholders, so to speak, trying to promote our interests at European level. So therefore, this is the PESCO context where I would like to give something which is, as I said, seen from a particular legitimacy coming from an establishment that I'm representing. On the other hand, of course, like always in such a forum, you can say a lot of bad things by saying, well, okay, but that was informal, so don't blame it. But try to read between the words that I'm about to present in what follows. So, okay, can you? I don't know how to press next on this kind of thing, but okay. So now we are in a moment when we discuss about PESCO as joint collaborative projects, and most certainly with respect to what we do, we could consider that we are talking mainly on partnerships. And for your information, all the negative things that have been said by my colleague on my left-hand side are somehow linked a little bit to what you can see here. This is a little bit linked to the very complex dimension which is associated to these partnerships and the way we do business in the industrial towards defense economic world. That means that, of course, there are several dimensions, several layers, all of them have their own problems. And, of course, there are elements that probably for each of us, assuming that you are in, play a particular significant role. Either that we refer to international or EU context, so to speak, or we move a little bit lower to the national policies, which obviously play a particular role. And then the more you go to the company level or the human dimension, then there are many, many things to be said. So probably I will skip a little bit of discussion on that because most certainly I've been encouraged to go a little bit further. So after 16 years, actually more than 16 years in European framework programs, of course Romania was not part of the European Union at the beginning, so we can only talk of a more recent history. We have some experience. Also we have more than 7 years experience in ESA projects, and currently we can talk about at least 3 years being inside PESCO things, and we still argue on what PESCO is not. So at least from the way I look at things, so once again, this is more kind of a bottom-up approach to the problem. PESCO is not a research and innovation framework program, so therefore looking on a research establishment trying to tell you things might say, well, it's not that relevant because you are doing something in the wrong way. On the other hand, if you talk about industrial partnerships, joint ventures, PPPs, etc., no, PESCO is not such a similar thing. We have different instruments at the European level that address industrial partnerships in the proper way. We have different instruments for joint ventures, PPP, like Clean Sky, as it was referred to, or potential future PPPs, as probably Mr. Bușoi can tell you obviously much more about it and what is the meaning behind this kind of things. So yes, PESCO is not such thing. On the other hand, PESCO is not open. So assuming that some people are linked to the way the traditional, more civil things are happening in the Horizon 2020 as we speak, no, PESCO is not at all open. It's not transparent, doesn't provide free access, is not citizen-centered, and of course is biased. On the other hand, we can say another dimension to the topic, but probably that will be for the free discussions. On the other hand, yes, we cannot talk about dissemination or being a PESCO-related event as a dissemination of whatever efficient activities you are producing. On the other hand, yes, we can conclude that PESCO really is a reality. There are people starting to build, as it was a little bit referred to in the introduction, success stories from the first wave of PESCO projects. Of course, this is needed because otherwise you cannot justify the funding. But on the other hand, yes, there are some success stories which are there. On the other hand, yes, it's a true opportunity, and this is the reason to have this discussion today, but it's a true opportunity only for the people who are inside the club. And now the question would be, what is the club and how you get a ticket for the club and how you can be effective in that particular club. Now, another thing is to obviously state is that it's a strategic partnership, including research and innovation on one hand, industrial, human resources, but this is only if you're supported by your own country. So now again, I'm just presenting as a stakeholder, part of a Romanian stakeholder, and now this is the reality. I mean, if you're not supported by your own country and you would like to go to PESCO, you have no chance. If you are not supported by your country and you are good enough, you can be a very significant player in the Horizon 2020 or in Horizon Europe. On the contrary, I would say, you are even encouraged to do that, so to speak. On the other hand, PESCO is a secure long-term investment in technologies and human resources in specific infrastructures. But again, here comes the country that must provide you the right support to do that. Otherwise, you have no chance. So by seeing just a little bit of this, a little bit more pessimistic approach to the PESCO, why we have an interest in PESCO? Why is PESCO interesting for us? And now, I don't want to enter into too many details, but by just looking how the Lisbon Treaty was setting up PESCO environment, there are some words that have to be carefully written and read and probably to be understood by politicians mainly. Just because from this perspective, of course, 3 of them are somehow linked to what we do as an establishment, research and development, and where we have this kind of words which can conclude this music to our ears. But this is only kind of a music is coming from one side. It's not always the case that we can contribute to the play. But at least it's music for our ears. So we definitely, looking on what is here, for instance, we find our goals as planned, so to speak, and as probably part of the wishes and the part of the negotiation that was coming from the member states in PESCO, and therefore the future is there. The question is, how can you benefit of this very, very, very generous environment? How can you make the best of this more political message that is coming from the PESCO status with respect to the real world? And here is probably something also important. Now, I'm not addressing directly PESCO as an alternative to Horizon Union, but let's be honest, PESCO projects are based on European priorities identified by EU member states through what is called a document, which is Capability Development Plan, of course taking into account the result of the Coordinated Annual Review on Defense. On the contrary, I would say, has already been inspired by what we have in Horizon 2020 on Horizon Europe partnerships, where we talk about strategic research and innovation agendas. Basically, if you would like to be effective in an European civil area, even if you're a stakeholder doing dual-use technologies or being active in defense as the industrial world, you have to look from the Horizon Europe perspective into what is called strategic research and innovation agendas. And why I'm referring to that? Because PESCO should not be seen as a singularity, as a moment priority. It has to be something which draws lines for the future. It's something which has a programmatic approach with specific roadmaps with respect to the technologies involved, as well as the other elements which are there involved. So therefore, by just presenting PESCO as an opportunity, but not mentioning what is in fact the technological roadmap behind, or at least the capabilities which are to be considered in the short term or even medium term, it's a little bit tricky. And last but not least, that's very interesting, because PESCO really states that member states participating in PESCO should present annual updates of their individual national implementation plans. You have to imagine that now, looking on the research community, everybody should be happy, because everybody would like to see such reports. By the way, we haven't seen that. So that not involve our country, but doesn't involve even PESCO as a goal. But again, still there is a chance to learn from what was there. And I'm telling you this because, as already said by my colleague in the panel, Cyrille, is that, of course, we talk about 47 projects in 3 batches, but these are missed opportunities, in my opinion. And not only in my opinion, in most of the people that we cohabitate with. So assuming that we are looking on PESCO on opportunities, obviously things have to be changed a little bit. And the way to change those things is coming obviously from ideas that we have. I would say that we have some relevant experience. We are involved in 3 projects, out of which 2 in the last call, but obviously we try to do more, but okay, frustration is there. But yes, we look for the next batch. So for us, the future is 2021. So in that sense, of course, opportunities for our perspective, and with respect to the panel topic today, is that we have to look on what can we do so that in 2021, we have real opportunities. And I'm not referring to a stakeholder individual thing, but also in a broader context, and how to build such opportunities so that everybody can benefit of. This is good saying that we have a target, but things are not that easy in 2021. And the reason they are not simple is because now, coming back a little bit to the political dimension of European Union, of course, Horizon 2020 and preparatory actions for defense and ADIDP are more or less in the final delivery phase. So you have to anticipate that whatever will come in PESCO in the future is highly dependent on the deliverables coming mainly from PIDR and ADIDP plans, but also take into account that Horizon Europe and European Defence Fund will play a significant role. We've been informed initially that the huge opportunities coming from the Defence Fund and what will come. We were talking about 2-digit numbers with respect to the funding. Now we are a little bit 60% or something from the initial planning. Maybe we go up, and now it's a kind of a V thing. Maybe negotiation will make things possible again. But behind that, the magic word would be strategic partnerships. Because this is not where you should actually feel that you have a development plan. This is something to make incentive actions so that you can obviously be confident that at least some strategies are to be supported at European level. But in the end, yes, you definitely need to have your own life, your own strategic partnerships, and to use PESCO in order to continue your plans. PESCO should not be there just because of your single line of business. Now, in this line, I might show a little bit of a way forward, at least from our perspective, so what is to be followed. Of course, we need a strategy, a revised strategy, in order to be more successful in 2021. And I'm not referring to a national strategy. I'm more referring to a bottom-up, stakeholder-related strategy with respect to the way to do business in an industrial world. Of course, at national level, we need partnerships. You cannot go in PESCO just saying, hello, I'm from Romania, just bring me in. You need to have support. Now, of course, I'm talking on a research establishment position. We need our industry. We don't deliver without the industry. The industry should be there to deliver. We consider that we are good enough in order to give them opportunities to deliver, but if the industry is not delivering, it makes no sense to consider that just doing something for the PESCO project. Now, when we're referring, at least at the moment in Romania, on key industrial partnerships, of course, traditionally, we were looking on what was before 1990 and a specific set of things around that. Things change. We have newcomers. We have new alliances which are equally eligible as Romanian stakeholders, so that obviously we should take advantage of that, bring them on the table, try to do the best with them. Now, international partnerships is also a big thing. How can you be successful in PESCO projects linked to aeronautics when Romania is not a member of ISD? So there are some incompatibilities which have to be carefully assessed, because in the end you have to do work, you have to be there together with the key players at European level. I'm not saying that ISD is the one, but this is just a simple example. If we are not doing our best in order to be there, then the club is closed. Now, on the other hand, you need political support on national level, in our area of competence, of course, but I would say that in all areas of competence, you need a real strategy. And not only a strategy, you need instruments to implement. And here probably there will be a reason for more discussions involving from political to financial to many, many other dimensions to make people understand what is the benefit of having PESCO, using funding, but not being associated to whatever financial criminality and so on. Then, of course, dedicated human resource and associated logistics are important, and when I'm referring to logistics, is not the type of logistics people might expect from the moment. We need our structures in Brussels, first of all. Makes it impossible to be successful in PESCO projects and work for your office, which is located whatever countryside in Bucharest. If you're in your office, you have no chance to get a contract. Assuming that you would like to get a contract and you're looking in your yard, you're wasting time. You have to be there with the right people. You have to be there with people trained, who knows already what to do, and obviously to continue the process, because this is a continuous learning thing. And last but not least, synergies. Of course, synergies are quite important from many, many perspectives and directions. Synergies with Horizon Europe to come, with ADIDP and European Defence Fund to follow. This is an area to look for, but again, this is food for thought for the future. And now, it's not that pessimistic. Huh? We have to be optimistic. We have to build trust inside our community, and hopefully we will be successful in the future PESCO. Sorry, maybe took longer than expected.
Thank you very much. Was another point of view, very interesting. And maybe we have more questions now after the full presentation. And it's time to start the question time. If you have, please, you have the microphone, or I recommend you to utilize the microphone for all the people.
Yes, thank you. I have two questions. I don't know which is the allowed quota of questions.
Please present.
I'm Daniel Kokolic. I'm with the Romanian MOD. The first question is addressed to Madam Secretary of State for Defense Policy concerning what you said about strategic autonomy doesn't equal strategic isolation, and I would like to invite you to elaborate on how do you feel other European Union members feel about the topic. Of course, Mr. Bret's comment would also be helpful with respect of this question. And the second question would be how Brexit affects the defense industrial cooperation in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. A very interesting topic about strategic autonomy. It's a brand new concept, and I recall a lot from our presidency last year in the first 6 months when we had a successful presidency, and during our presidency such concepts related to strategic autonomy were, put on the agenda in different meetings and formats. And as I said, for a country like Romania, transatlantic link is vital, and we do think that Europe's security cannot be assured or provided in, in isolation. And of course, we have, now UK leaving the EU. We have pressure indeed on the transatlantic link. There are tensions. There are a lot of evolutions around. There are a lot of evolutions in and around Europe. Look at the crises that are surrounding in a way Europe, and we have Belarus, we have Eastern Mediterranean these days. We have a lot happening in the Middle East and so on. And we do think that we need to preserve the transatlantic link. And I will say more on this, that for a country like Romania, for a country on the eastern flank, NATO remains the primary security provider. Article 5 is ironclad for Romania. On the other hand, we do recognize, we observe the need for Europe to become, as I said, a more capable defense sector. Because, again, it's not very difficult to see what is happening in the international environment, at the security level, and all these evolutions in around Europe. And that's why we are very, very much in favoring an European stance, an European voice on the global arena. And we are very, very much, developing forces and capabilities for potential contribution to the full range of NATO and EU-led missions. So, to sum up, I should say that Romania is amongst the member states that favors the balanced approach, that favors the added value that our allies, the third countries, could bring to European Union. And we are favoring very much the EU-NATO cooperation. At the end of the day, EU-NATO cooperation was amongst our priorities during Romanian presidency of the European Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another questions? For the Brexit?
I fully share the views of my co-panelists. I think that the two questions you raised are essential and will remain so for the years to come. First, isolation, autonomy, autism, sovereignty, okay. The point is to be made in other words, I think. Who is to decide of the security, the sovereignty, the integrity of the territory, the resource, the populations of the European member states? I think that the Europeans are the only ones that are to decide of what happens to them. No one but the Europeans are entitled to decide what is good for them. No one but the Europeans, and each and every member of the European Union is entitled to say to the Europeans what they should do, what they shouldn't do. That's sovereignty. That's European sovereignty. Isolation is a weakness in the political realm. When you're isolated, you are deprived of resource, you are deprived of help, you are deprived of allies, you are deprived of information. Isolation is a strategic suicide in any respect. It's my formula is valid for France, it's valid for Europe, but it's valid for each and every state in the current situation. I think that I witnessed, especially in Riga and Vilnius, I felt that autonomy, strategic autonomy, was badly felt. Why not? I mean, mishaps happen in international relations, but the emphasis should be put here, in Bucharest, should be put in Warsaw, in Paris, in Brussels, everywhere in Europe. The emphasis should be put on the ability of the European Union to decide on their security, their destiny, and to ensure themselves the sovereignty of the territory, the population, and the decision-making processes in Europe. So we can label it as we want, badly or, yes, in a more favorable way, but no one is entitled to decide on the future of Europe but the Europeans. And they will remain independent states. There is no European state, so it's a question of interstate negotiations, and that's obvious, and I think that's good. That's one of the strengths, not of the weaknesses of Europe. Concerning Brexit, as you probably know, otherwise you would not have raised the question, the bonds between the UK and the European Union are weakening, whereas the bonds between the UK and several member states are deepening in the realm of security and defense. I think that the primary purpose of the EU is not and was not defense. The efforts made by all of us here to develop that aspect are important, but when it comes to defense, when it comes to military operations, when it comes to military capabilities, and when it comes to defense industries, we cannot manage without the British. That's obvious, and we have to compensate the loss of the UK on the political level by new agreements, new cooperations with the UK on the defense level. But once again, the Brexit is not at the core of the European defense. I think we can manage. And in that matter, in that respect, and many of the people here in the room or in the tent are more qualified to say so, defense, national security is a matter of pragmatism. And I think we can get along with the British without them in the European Union. It's probably too optimistic, but I think it's the goal that is to be set. Thank you again for the questions.
On Brexit, a very short answer, because I'm the team of European Parliament negotiating the Brexit. I'm responsible for my committee for ITRE. We experienced a very limited will of UK to continue cooperation in many aspects. In the area of competencies of ITRE committee, their main interest is to continue on Horizon, certain cooperation, the research program, and in some projects related to energy. So here we don't see a very much will to continue cooperation. On the other hand, after the lost decade, which was mentioned by the other panelists and by Mr. Bret, the initiatives that we are discussing today are quite new. UK is not in PESCO, and they are not participating to these common and jointly programs. So Brexit has an impact on the EU in general in many areas, but on defense and industry, the defense industry, the impact is much more limited. And of course, the solution is to discuss and cooperate with them bilaterally or multilaterally, so a group of member states in a certain project, a concrete project, But on this joint initiative, I don't think they will participate. But nothing is clear until now. We don't know what they want in other major areas, like the commercial treaties and many other areas which the impact is much higher. But here the impact is limited, but the willingness is also limited.
Thank you very much. We don't have a lot of time. Only 1 minute for your questions and our response.
Actually, I had a question about Colonel Oğuz Ezik, Turkish MOD. I deal with NATO and EU relations, basically at the MOD level. But I had a question about inclusion of non-EU NATO allies into PESCO projects. But having heard complaints from Mr. Nae, how difficult it was to get in the club and then so on and so forth. So I just put that out as a remark instead of a question. So if you want to make any comments, it's just welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I will try to find an answer like this. There is an official document released by PESCO showing how third countries are to be involved in PESCO. Obviously, you have to be a third country in order to understand what it really means. To be the one applying according to those rules. But technically, there is this possibility. You can be a PESCO also being a third country. Now, assuming that you will have more chances of success, in my opinion, but again, this is a personal opinion, this is heavily dependent on your strategic partnerships, as were referred earlier. We are talking on the industrial world where partnerships are at a very international level. So assuming that there are key capabilities which are there in a multinational big stakeholder in the industrial world, most certainly if you're in a third country, you are in. I mean, even if not directly, or even if it takes a little bit longer than you might expect, you are somewhere over there, mainly with respect to particular industrial interest. But assuming that you would like to be there for more political reasons, then obviously this is another story, so it's a different level, so maybe my co-panelists can comment more on that.
A very, very short remark. So first stage participation to PESCO is not yet defined. So I cannot offer you at this stage an answer to this. There are a lot of negotiations still ongoing in relation to first states participation to PESCO or to EDF, and there is also a link with the participation of the first states in PESCO and their cooperation with European Defence Agency. There are different agreements to be signed also at that level that could help in accessing also to PESCO. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was the last questions, and finally I want to have some remarks. It was a very good discussion about one very interesting subject, because we talk about defense industry and PESCO programs, very important bricks in our world. And I have a proposal for reflection, your reflection. Maybe it's the time to discuss about common pool for different available specialists in different domains, not only for the countries, because now we have only discussion between countries, but maybe it's the time to put in the same pool a large number of specialists available to be engaged in different programs without a national participation. And of course, it's a good opportunity for European part, eastern part, to put in the same pool different industrial capabilities or another research center to contribute of the success of this project. Thank you very much, and I want to thank for all the speakers for the excellent presentation, as well the audience. Thank you, have a nice day, and I invite you to coffee, because it's a time coffee.